Now, this story is the second part in a trilogy. It centres on the key character of Barney. Take us through his life at Punchbowl Boys High School, very much as a lot of our viewers would know, in the centre of media attention in recent years.
Well, the book is set around the year 2000 when there was a series of incidents nationally and globally, which dramatically impacted the perception of young Arab Australian Muslim men. And I happened to go to a school where there was a large percentage of those young men, and that school had barbed wires and cameras. There was a lot of violence inside the school, a lot of negative attitudes towards young women, a lot of homophobia. And on the outside, there were news reports about, young Arab Australian Muslim men, Lebs, as my book calls them, being pigeonholed as sexual predators, as terrorist suspects, as drug dealers and drive-by shooters. And so I wanted to tell the story from the inside, the perspective of a Leb on those accounts about who we are. And
which takes us back to Barney, the protagonist, in his teenage years, having to navigate his way through all of this. Was it autobiographical?
The genre that I write in is called autobiographical fiction, so it's a fictionalised account, but it's based on my real-life experiences as a Leb myself, as a young Arab Australian Muslim man growing up in a climate of xenophobia and Islamophobia, which had constructed us as a bit of a folk devil in the perception of the Western media and the Western political gaze.
And Barney in the book tries to, at least for a lot of the novel, break away from his culture. Was that your experience as well, trying to push back against all that criticism by disassociating yourself with your Arab heritage?
Well, a lot of, I think, second and third generation Lebanese-Australian Muslims who, in recent years have been called things like mistakes of the Fraser government, often feel conflicted about their identities. And so I did develop self-hating tendencies as a young man. And actually, the Lebs is about the journey for Bani Adam. And I'll tell you, in Arabic, the name Bani Adam means humankind or child of Adam. And so I wanted to talk about the universalities of this young man being conflicted in this particular narrative and coming to the realization that he's beautiful just the way he is. There's nothing wrong with who we are, and we should actually embrace it, not push up against it, because that's what it means to be Australian. This is a story about being a young Arab Australian Muslim.
It's a very compelling and a very confronting read, as you say, set 17, 18 years ago. Let's fast forward. What's the lived experience now, yours, but also, most importantly, the young kids you teach in this group called Sweatshop you've set up in southwest Sydney, this literacy program for Arab Australians?
Well, it's not just for Arab Australians, it's pretty much for everybody from a culturally and linguistically diverse background. It is based in the western suburbs of Sydney, and we work in partnership with organisations like Westwards, the Western Sydney Literature Development Organisation, and Western Sydney University. And the goal of Sweatshop is to empower culturally diverse communities through reading, writing and critical thinking. And it's based on the work of an important African-American cultural theorist named Bell Hooks, who argues that all steps towards freedom and justice in any culture are always dependent on mass-based literacy movements, because degrees of literacy determine how you see what you see.
OK, book number 3 as we wrap up on its way?
Yep, so I'm currently working on the third book in this trilogy of Bani Adam's life. And I think it will look at the final stage. So the first book looked at him as a child. This book is one of the most pivotal moments. He's a teenager. And the third book will look at what it means for him, for Bani Adam, to become a man and an adult in the post-9/11 era.
Excellent. We look forward to the TV adaptation, hopefully at some stage, Mohammed.
Thank you. And I also want to finish by saying Salamu Alaikum, which in the language of my ancestors means peace be upon you.
And peace be upon you too. Thanks very much for coming in and having a chat, Mohammed. Thank you.